Sometimes pairing up these films for this countdown are as simple as two films having similar names. That's the case with today's reviews. This is M.L. Miller Fright's Best in Horror Countdown 2022 through 2023, counting down the best in horror within the window of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
Number 27.
Influencer was released on May 26th, 2023, and it's streaming on Shudder. It's directed by Curtis David Harder and written by Tesh Ghattekkonda and Curtis David Harder. Though she was supposed to go on a trip to Thailand with her boyfriend, social media influencer Madison, played by Emily Tennant, decides to keep her plan and tour Thailand alone. This is where she meets CW, played by Cassandra Nod, who is not really into the influencer thing, but does seem to be looking for companionship and quickly befriends Madison. But all is not what it seems. Of course not. There wouldn't be a movie otherwise. Influencer is a top-tier level suspense thriller, classically and ingeniously constructed from start to finish. It plays out a scenario, and then moves on to another chapter with a new set of people, only to have that first scenario come back and bite the second one in the ass. I'm being vague, I know, but I really don't want to give too much away involving the mystery and suspense of Influencer, other than the fact that the film has loads of both. Director Curtis David Harder has constructed a tense nail-biter reminiscent of some of Hitchcock's classics that guide you through dark and dangerous corridors, in this case, the wonderful culture of Thailand. Now, while the scenery is gorgeous, I can't get over how well-paced the puzzle pieces are in this thriller. While taking in the sights, this becomes a very complex cautionary tale to not travel alone and be wary of what you see on the touchscreen. It's about modern technology surrounded in a beautiful but dangerous package, delivering a warning that even though you have many followers online, it's the followers in the real world that are the most dangerous. There were moments that I was able to predict by the end of the movie, but I enjoyed seeing them play out nevertheless. It helps that this film is filled with stunning and talented people. Tennant is lovable as Madison, who might be a bit flighty, but is able to show real emotion, though she may be written off as the typical egotistical influencer at first sight. The same goes for her boyfriend Ryan, played by Rory J. Saper, who seems like the typical douchey boyfriend at first, but it turns out he is in love deeply with Madison, and it really fleshes out the character into someone worth rooting for. Later in the film, Sarah Canning, who I last saw in Superhost, another influencer horror flick of sorts, plays Jessica, who again is drop-dead gorgeous and touring Thailand for a photo shoot, but is quite savvy past her model looks. If there's a message to Influencer, it's don't judge a book by its cover, given the way the characters are presented, and then how the film lets you get to know their deeper sides. But really, this is Cassandra Nod's movie. Hopefully she can move on to something big after this, as she delivers a rock star performance as the local with a definite agenda. The way she slyly manipulates everyone around her with her doe eyes, innocent demeanor, and slightly insecure manners is wonderful to see play out. It's like seeing a predator do what it's best at and marveling at the execution. Nod is indeed a beauty, but as described in the film, she's utterly unique due to her facial birthmark. But it's not just that. There is the way she moves her eyes and the body language she exudes that makes her sexy as all get out, but as deadly as a Bond villain. I hope to see lots more of Nod in future films. So I think I did a pretty good job of keeping the secrets of Influencer under wraps for this review. It's got some tasty suspense, sumptuous sights, and pretty people getting into all kinds of peril. It would make the perfect double feature with another Shudder exclusive, Sissy, which itself is about the perils of taking your online persona a little too seriously. But Influencer feels like one of those top-tier sexy thrillers Joe Esterhaus specialized in during the 90s. There's a sleaziness to it, but it's difficult to look away from. Just check this one out and thank me later. It's a diabolically good thriller. From influencing to perpetrating, here's the highly original and surreal film called Perpetrator. It's time for the perpetrator. It's time for the perpetrator. It's time for the perpetrator. Perpetrator was released on August 31st, 2023, and it's streaming on Shudder. It's directed and written by Jennifer Reeder. Just before she turns 18 years old, Johnny, played by Kia McKernan, is sent to live with her Aunt Hildy, played by Alicia Silverstone, who attempts to guide Johnny into a transformation that involves blood, mirroring, empathy, and reshaping one's body to mimic another's. It's a family trait that's been passed down for generations. As Johnny struggles to master her power, someone has been abducting young girls in Johnny's new school. Feeling compelled to get to the bottom of these abductions, Johnny attempts to be abducted herself, bringing her face to face with a horror she's not prepared for. If you remember the original X-Men movie, that film started out with a sequence where Anna Paquin, playing Rogue, absorbs the mind of the first boy she kisses. That little scene may have been the opening for a superhero film, but the quality of acting and the way director Bryan Singer orchestrated the scene made it the stuff of pure body horror. I don't know about you, but after that scene, every time someone touched another person, I was expecting some kind of horror to happen. Had X-Men proceeded with the body horror for the rest of the movie, I think it would have been something a little like Perpetrator. The film really dives deep into some very gruesome body horror, especially involving blood and menstruation, that proved to be quite wince-inducing to me upon watching. I guess it's just a guy thing, but knowing where the blood comes from hit me on a visceral level that usually doesn't affect me in such a way. I know. Guys shouldn't be so freaked out by menstruation. But sue me for being honest about how much this scene, where Johnny discovers her powers through her menstrual blood, and how much the following scenes, involving blood that isn't menstrual in nature, made me queasy by association. I will give Reeder this. She really does push the body horror and makes it feel all too real. This also works so well because of the strong performance by the lead, Kia McKernan. She's a fresh new face filled with quirky personality, making her character absolutely likable and relatable despite this strange situation she's in. Alicia Silverstone makes up for her god-awful performance in last year's The Requiem as the cold and calculated Hildy, who tries to guide Johnny through this transformation. She's the Professor X of this movie. The rest of the cast is made up of kooky characters one might find in a latter-day John Waters movie like Crybaby or Serial Mom. It's that oversaccharidated, wholesome feel that hides dark undertones just below the surface touched upon in such films as Heathers, Donnie Darko, and Excision. Reeder captures this oddball feel with such characters as the principal, played by Christopher Lowell, who goes through mass shooting scenarios weekly, roaming the halls of his school with a super soaker filled with fake blood, and a secretary, played by Audrey Francis, who gets more and more plastic surgery as the film goes on. Some of these characters are actually important to the plot, while others simply let the viewer know that this world that Reeder has created is offbeat and more than a little strange. The biggest problem I had with Perpetrator is that I feel the movie could have ended about 20 minutes sooner than it did. It would have been a really solid film if it would have done that. Instead, after the climactic battle between Johnny and her abductor, who proves to be quite demented in his own right, there's another leg of this film that sort of loses its way and wraps things up way too tidily. I think if the movie ended with Johnny mastering her power, it would have been strong enough. Instead, more of her past had to be revealed, and the story gets rather murky and rushed, almost as if the last 20 minutes is a truncated sequel squished in there because this might have been originally thought of as a series rather than a movie. Still, Perpetrator seals the deal that Reeder is a director to watch. She's got a great offbeat style and a twisted sense of storytelling. She juggles some pretty gruesome issues, isn't afraid to make things bloody, and manages to even it out with some equally dark comedy. I like the way Reeder made me feel so much unease and so much interest in the lead character all at once. While it loses its momentum in the last act, up to that point, Perpetrator is a solid little monster coming-of-age movie. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or how about you play along at home and give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown. Be sure to hit all of those pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.